Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Untitled Reviews. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are dramas. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the series premiere of The Curse. Great series premiere. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Okay, so this is the first thing I've ever seen Nathan Fielder in. I am aware of Nathan Fielder's style of things with Nathan For You and The Rehearsal. I've never seen them, but I know the reputation of cringe comedy, of just like the most awkward, uncomfortable stuff. And it's like, oh boy, is that in fold here in the show. I wasn't sure what to really make of this show because I avoided watching too many of the trailers, so I wasn't really sure what the show was actually about. I got enough of it to know it was actually literally about a curse, but we find it's so interesting because it's like this show's kind of meta in regards, because it's like, obviously it's designed to almost be like a reality TV show, specifically an HGTV show, where like they're not just flipping houses. It's like, oh, we're trying to like take a more holistic approach to basically helping people get like more, I don't know if this is the right word, but kind of almost like eco-friendly and energy-friendly housing, while kind of keeping their prices the same. And specifically, this couple who've only been together, well, they've been married a year. Who knows how long they've actually just been together in totality? But the Seagulls, and they're trying to specifically help this town, Espanola, right? And they also have their crazy producer. Well, he says he's not a producer. I guess maybe he is a producer in some regards. Dougie. Because he had talked about the fact is HGTV could have sent like one of their executives here, but it was like executive producers here, but it's just me. So I guess he's filling the role of producer, but it's that reality TV element of, reality TV where it's kind of like, oh yeah, like it's not scripted, but it kind of is, because it's like nudge, nudge, wink, wink. We get to like cut this into whatever we want to, which I think is going to be the ultimate danger and the ultimate fallout for this whole situation. But it's like, yeah, a little inside baseball to like how, that's something I've only recently learned in the past couple of years, of just like how it really kind of works on reality TV shows. Never taken part in production, but you hear from people who've been a part of productions of reality TV shows and stuff like that. And it's just kind of like, and because I've like, and when you see this, you're like, oh, it is getting a real, like it's probably like hyperbolized in some facets, but probably very like direct and very exact in a lot of other capacities about just the behind the scenes stuff at all. I mean, Dougie's a complete another sociopath, dude. The fact is, he's like, oh, no. Mom, look more happy. Your son just got a job, okay? How about I put a little water in your eyes? And then he pours a little bit more, and they're just like, okay, that's enough. He's like, oh, a little methadone to kind of make the eyes a little red. Yeah, go ahead, wipe away your tears. Oh, your baby boy just got a job. And it's like, Whitney is not a fan of this because Dougie and Asher know each other. We don't really know how, like, whether they're like college buddies or like how their friendship actually works. But it's just like Whitney does not vibe with Dougie. Neither does Asher to some extent, because even he recognizes like, Dougie's a lot. But for him, it's like, no, I'm making this great show. It's going to be amazing. I mean, just to show you how twisted Dougie is, the show that he's working on that he helped create, what was Love by Third Degrees or something like that, and it's about a guy that was in a horrible fire and he's covering up his face. I guess it's supposed to be like a little like tongue-in-cheek play on like Love Is Blind type of situation. I mean, obviously we've seen, I'm not a reality TV show person, but I know enough from the outside about the different type reality TV shows, and that one in particular has become a more popular style of more recent, where it's kind of like you don't really get to see each other type of vibe. A lot of reality TV shows have been kind of leaning in that direction. But either way, like Naked Attraction, Love Is Blind type of situation. But either way, and even the song he chose is about fire and stuff like that. I love that once the face was revealed, you saw like Asher laugh, but Whitney's looking at him like, what the fuck are you laughing? And he's just almost like, no. But even he recognized like the musical choice too. It's like, Jesus, calling the show Love by Third Degrees. It's like, what are you going to do with future seasons? Are you going to find people with the exact same circumstances? Because he even talks about the fact is the network didn't pick it up. It was just because he was trying to show off his work. And he's even admitting to Whitney. He's like, see, I know it's much. It's like, he doesn't believe it's much. He only thinks it's a lot now. He's like, oh, I might have been, that was just for me. I was just kind of screwing around trying to make this. But it's like, that's not what your story's going to be. Oh, there's so much good to your story. It's like, your you're only saying that because of their reaction. Their reaction made you go, oh, cool, I'm kind of a twisted human being, and I showed it to the wrong people. I thought certain crowds would appreciate it. It's like, that guy is unhinged. And I think we're going to see more and more of how depraved and twisted he is, because there's so many shots in this episode where it's like, that doesn't feel like that's just like the actual TV show, The Curse, being filmed. It feels like, dude, I wonder if this, I doubt it's going to get as like existential as like Dispatches from Elsewhere. If you've never seen that show, that's a very existential show that goes wild. You're like, wait, what's the whole deal with this whole thing? And then you get the reveal about it. Once again, I don't want to spoil it. It's really worth watching. But my whole point is like how that kind of got dealt with. Like, I don't think this show is intentionally going to be existential like that. I think it's just going to be a byproduct of, oh, Dougie's secretly filming a whole bunch of stuff and you have no idea. And that's going to be like the real twist when Whitney and Asher find out, like, oh, how much he's got recorded and what he's doing with it, because they want to be presented in a certain light. But that's reality TV show for you, baby. Once that footage is there, they can do whatever they want to. They can call, she's like, oh my God, did you hear what so-and-so said? Oh, did you see what so-and-so did? Just to kind of cause more issues and stuff. Like during, like, because he has this moment with Whitney near the end of the episode, which was really, really weird, where he was like, oh yeah, Asher, we thought he'd be kind of like a, we kept calling him Data from Star Trek and stuff like that because he's so, like, analytical, but it's like, oh, he's not really the most, I guess, empathetic in some regards. And he's like, and then he's going on about Whitney, about like how great she is on camera and how bright she is, and Whitney's kind of was like, what the fuck? She's kind of doesn't know what to do with that. My immediate thought was like, is he trying to make a move on her? Because at first I was like, do you think? Because he was, and he specifically says the phrase that when everyone sees you on camera, they're going to know what it's like to be with you. And I'm like, that's a little too specific considering what we know about Asher and Whitney's relationship, that I'm like, okay, so did Asher still have like that record? Like, because you have to be within a certain range for like microphones to pick up anything, even if its mic is on. But it's like, it might just be the fact is that Doug has a lot more camera people stationed out places that it's going to probably be that little trippy fourth wall thing of like, once again, how meta it is, in that we'll probably think like, oh, this is just them filming the show, The Curse. But in actuality, it's like some of these camera shots will actually just be Doug having his camera guy like recording stuff that he shouldn't be recording. And there's just instances throughout the episode where I'm like, that the way that shot looks like that was made on purpose to look like, no, someone like inside the show is filming this. This isn't just a show being filmed. It's, you know, that's one. And like I said, it's going to be super meta, and it's going to like be hard to kind of delineate that with the way I'm talking about which degree of the fourth wall I'm talking, you know? But speaking of Asher and Whitney's situation, that was wild when it's like their sexy time. I was like, okay, so we have some cuckold roleplay, which I don't know why it baffles me that that's a thing. I mean, I know cuckolding's a thing, but like role-playing, that's interesting. Because to me, like, if you're doing the whole cuckolding thing, I just assumed you'd go full throttle with it, but full throttle. Shout out to my man Joe. Full throttle. YMH joke. Either way, tangents and all that aside, God, I got sidetracked by my own thoughts there. My point was like, you would probably go like, you got to go all the way with it, and not really do the. I mean, I guess like even if you go all the way with it, I don't think that's considered role playing if you're going all the way through with the cuckolding of it all. But like role playing it in the bedroom, like he's using a vibrator on Whitney and pretending like it's someone else, and he's like, oh, I want you to finish to him and stuff like that. It's like, I was like, oh, dude, this is uncomfortable. Like, to me, there's nothing worse than when you have to watch. Like, it's not, because it's not sexy, unless that's your thing. I mean, no kink shaming or whatever, but to me, it's too awkward to be sexy. You know, it's just like, and I think that's kind of the point. It's meant to be the most unsexy thing, because it's like, unless you're able to get into it, you're like, oh, I can look past, like, the quote-unquote cringe comedy of it all and the awkwardness of it all and kind of get into, like, the role play of the situation. But it's like, to me, it's like, the uncomfortable and awkwardness, because I'm like, there's just too many, like, okay, because I'm also like, in my head, I'm like, what was that like to film? That had to be so wild to film that scene. That's got to be insane to film. Because we also had the whole thing about Asher's tiny penis, which that ended up being a whole thing with Whitney's dad. Because he was bringing that whole analogy of like, oh yeah, like there are two types of tomatoes, like the big ones and then like the small cherry ones. And he kept going on and on about Asher's small dick. I thought the twist was going to be like, oh, he has a massive cock or something. The way they were spending so much time on him, like, are we going to find out he has a massive dick? But then it's like, Asher takes pride in knowing like, well, your dad's got a smaller dick than I do. And I'm like, dude, and the fact is we saw it, because the moment we saw Asher's dick, I was like, what the fuck? What? I was like, why is... I was like, man, I feel like we've been... Maybe it's maybe when it comes to sexual content in, like, TV shows or movies, we're trying to swing the pendulum the other way, because there's been so much, like, boobs and vag that it's like, hey, we need to show equal opportunity genitals. So it just feels like every time I turn around, I'm seeing more penis on screen. I'm looking at you, Genvi. That it just feels like that's just been a concerted effort, more like to just put more dick in more TV shows or something like that. It feels like that. Maybe I'm a conspiracy nut job, but it's like, I mean, I get it. You want to be more of an equal opportunity. It's like ladies have had to bear boobs and bush. I mean, more often than not, it's a merkin anyway, but you get what I'm saying. So it's kind of, women had to put it all out there. So it's like, yeah, time for the men to kind of do the same. So either way, that just whole thing, and just the fact is he harped on it so much, but I guess it's because he's like, well, I know what it's like. He's like, it's an issue. I get it being having self-esteem issues about it, which Asher's asking Whitney about. She's like, no, I didn't tell him that. I talked to my mom about it one time. Also, they're wondering like, oh, he was like, what, you told your dad we don't have sex? She's like, a lot that we're not really trying. So it's interesting because he's like, did you tell your dad, did you tell them that it's kind of you that doesn't like want it? I was like, so the whole cuckolding thing, like the role play thing that they have, it's like, is that more for her or him, or is it a combination of the two? I don't know. Maybe it's just, hey, it's a match made in heaven, like we both want this and we both get off to this. I don't know if that's supposed to be indicative of what he means, of like, yeah, we're not really having sex because you prefer our role play like this, and that's why he was like, oh, I want you to finish off to him, because he knew Whitney needed that, not necessarily that he needed it. But I guess it's like, once you do enough of someone else's kink and you're down for it, maybe it eventually becomes your kink too. So maybe it wasn't Asher's to begin with, but now it is. I mean, now it's also that thing of like, maybe that also plays into his somewhat insecurity about a small penis, even though he says he doesn't, because that plays into the whole cuckold role play they have. Dude, I don't know. But like I said, just the fact is her dad, like, and also because it's like, it's so wild because it's Corbin Benson? Corbin Burnson doing that, because like, once again, I associate him with Psych. So when I hear like that whole sequence just made it so interesting. I feel like there was something recent I saw him in. I think season 2, was season 2 of American God the most recent thing I saw him in? Could have sworn there was something else more recent I saw him in, and I'm not remembering off the top of my head. Either way. They also had that interview with Monica, the reporter, which I thought was so interesting, where she kept really prodding Whitney about her family. I'm like, why do you keep bringing up her family? And she's like, yeah, I have no association with my family. It's like, oh, okay, so like her family is like a big they kind of are in a similar field as her, but her family, like her parents in particular, gentrify a lot of neighborhoods and kick out a lot of locals and stuff like that. They're kind of actually notorious for that. So I guess that's why she's trying extra hard to swing the other way. And it's like, yeah, but we're only doing that in Espanola. Like, we're not doing that anywhere else. And anytime this conversation went that way, I don't know. Like, I kind of got a little bit of Homelander vibes in some capacities when it came to Asher, when he was like, why are you asking those type of questions? What do your parents do? He's like, well, my mom's a doctor or a nurse. No, my mom's a nurse, and my dad, well, he up and left. And he's like, well, what if I kept asking you about your dad? I'm not going to, but what if I kept doing that? See, you are smart, talented, beautiful woman, and you are not your parents. So kind of let's move off of that and focus on us. Monica was like, yeah, I think we got everything we need. And it's like, and Whitney's calling him out like, why did you do that? You lost. He's like, I'm sorry. She kind of blindsided me with that, which actually was really sweet. I mean, it's like, oh, you want to stick up for her? Because I was like, yeah, that's, I mean, I think that's, you can look at it two ways. That's any good reporter, or that's any slimy reporter just trying to get the clicks or the headlines and the stuff that they get, the whole, that I gotcha type of situation. I mean, understandable. You can't deny, I thought it was interesting too because even Whitney's like, you can't Google my name. Even if you Googled me, you would not have any connection with my family. So I wonder it's because she's a Siegel now, she's kind of scrubbed any connection to her family. Like she avoids using their last name, so there's no association, so she can kind of go her own way because she knows her family's reputation will tarnish her reputation. Maybe. But yeah, they're trying to talk to Monica. It's like, okay, so there's some stuff with the gaming board. It's specifically, I think I would assume it's something specifically tied to like a reservation or something, because they were like, yeah, we don't want to mess up like the Pablo, and we don't want to like screw, I guess, whatever relationship. Like either they're trying to handle it from a situation of we don't want to cause issues for any indigenous people that are associated with like this casino or whatever. But like some shady stuff went up there, and they're trying to make that the new narrative instead of what Monica's going to run, and that's this whole story. Because for Whitney, it's like, because of this, I could always distance myself from my family, but because of this whole interview, the fact is that anytime people Google my name now, it will directly connect to my family, and like they can't ask her not to run it directly, because that's going to make it even more juicy of, well, we got to run it now, don't we? Because it's more of a story, and in fact, it actually becomes part of the narrative that like, yeah, we ran this story, and oh my God, you won't believe it, the Siegels, Whitney in particular, didn't want us to run this story, so that's extra reason for us to do it. So. And you also had Dougie the entire time. I almost want to call him Benny because it's Benny Safdie playing the character. But it's like, and since I'm on that topic, like, just really quick, I'm like, is this the first? This isn't the first show Emma Stone's ever done. I mean, I'm not well versed in her entire filmography, but I know her mainly from movies. I don't think I've ever seen her in a TV show before. I mean, once again, I've talked about it before. Like, obviously, that line between movie actor and TV actor, that line has gotten so blurred now that there's plenty of actors you would never think you'd see doing a TV show, or maybe they haven't done TV in a very, very long time, circling back to TV just because the quality of TV is where it is, and you find the right project, and the accolades that could come around. It's a whole conversation. So it's just wild to me to kind of see like Emma Stone, and like, not saying she's never done one, it's just not that I'm aware of. I only know her from movies. My first introduction to her was Superbad. I think that was the first thing I ever saw her in. I don't know if that was necessarily her first movie, but it's the first thing I ever saw her in. Either way, tangents and all that aside. But anyway, my point before I went on that whole diatribe is that Dougie wanted to film the whole situation of like, but like, he couldn't get the microphone wouldn't connect. They tried to get closer and closer, but couldn't pick up the audio. So I was like, oh, I guess that worked out. But, that could just be like, we think not Benny, Jesus, that Dougie didn't get it, but maybe he did. So, there's also the whole situation of, because I remember seeing this scene in a trailer where Asher gives the little girl like $100. Once again, it just feels like I said, he's going to be, Dougie just seems like the producer from hell, where it just seems like he's doing stuff. Because he even said like, yeah, make sure you don't turn off his mic afterwards, because he wanted to hear what was going on between Monica and Asher. But either way, the little girl is the one who ended up cursing him. I didn't remember that. I remember him taking the $100 from the little girl. It's like, oh, I'm going to go get change. But by the time he comes back out, they're going. Which I love that whole bit of like, oh yeah, he's trying to use the ATM. The guy's like, yeah, tell me your PIN. And the guy's just staring at him. And he's like, no, you just tell me the trick. And I'll put it. He's like, no, man, it'll be faster. It takes like 2 seconds. Even I'm like, yeah, you don't really just hand people out. He's a little too like, it would be easier at this point just to tell him the trick. Why don't you just ask the guy at the cash register, like the guy who, because it's like I don't know if it's like I can't remember what place it was. I don't know if it's like a donut place or whatever, but I'm like, why don't you just ask that guy, but it's also that awkward situation of, well, I don't want to admit that I don't want to give you my pen, because, and even the other guy with him was like, what, you think we're going to steal your money or something? He's like, no. And finally gives the guy his pen, and he puts it in. It's like, how much money? He's like, 20. He's like, no, 40. And it's like, I thought you were going to go for a little bit more and just to cover up being kind of, or not even being one, but feeling kind of icky or like an asshole, I thought you were going to give him money, which that would have probably been even more of an awkward situation. You're like, yeah, thanks, buddy. Here's a 20. And it's like, yeah, sure. Thanks, pal. Which I love later on. It's like, wait, who are you on the phone with? He's like, my bank. I got to change my PIN number. So yeah, I love that being like, oh, you're just going, I was like, I don't understand being like a little worried. It's like, yeah, the guy was weird about that. He could have just been like, oh, let me show you the trick. I was like, I don't actually need your pen, but it could just be a thing of, bro, it's going to be easier if I do it because I know exactly what to do. Me explaining, it's like going to take even longer. Just let me do it. It's like, it probably was being a good Samaritan and not trying to be a dick about like, oh, I'm going to take your PIN number. It's like, well, it won't really do you any good considering you don't have like, for one, the card, nor do you have, but I guess it's like, you could always like fish some of that information, so maybe that's where it comes into play. But I'm like, PIN number won't do you any good when you don't have the person's name or card or information or banking information like that. But like I said, maybe you could easily fish something like that electronically. But either way, I mean, it's just that awkward thing of like, yeah, you might as well just let the little girl keep the 100 at this point in time, all the trouble you're going through. And also by the time you come back out, they're gone. And obviously this did not sit well with Whitney because she it believes in the whole curse thing when she saw, and Dougie knew exactly what he was doing when he was like, oh, I recorded this. And it's like, oh, this is not, it's also just, the fact is he made sure that was played in front of Whitney. Once again, he wants to cause some on-screen drama because it's going to make it, it's going to make it juicy, you know? It's going to make it real and raw, and that's what's going to make the show a hit, you know? So, like I said, he's going to definitely end up doing a lot of duplicitous shit throughout this show just to get stuff for the camera. But either way, Whitney ended up seeing the whole, him taking the little money from the little girl, and what really latched on to like, wait, what did she say? It's like, yeah, she cursed me. And she cursed you. I guess she's really all about it. Because I don't know if it's a situation of like, Asher's Jewish and they, well, maybe she's Jewish and Asher converted for her. I don't know, maybe it's the other way around. Because even he didn't know about the whole, like, oh yeah, which, you know, I'm not well versed in Judaism, so I didn't know the whole thing of, like, yeah, like, you have to, like, you can't, like, burn any, you can't burn, like, you're supposed to, like, not, like, turn on any light after the sun goes down, so you, like, preemptively light the candles, and that's supposed to be your light so that you can see your dinner, you know? I was like, oh, that's so interesting. Because even he was like, oh, is that the real reason behind it? He was like, oh, interesting. And then he kind of like runs through like the rest of the kind of like the prayer before you eat and stuff like that. He kind of like read, and he said it so like monotone and nonchalant and like, all right, just got to run through this. So that's why I'm like, I don't know if like who converted for who type of thing. I mean, it could just be they're both Jewish. I don't know. But my whole point is that it could just be like either that ties into Whitney being very religious because she's just a very spiritual person and she believes in curses. And so she tells Asher to remedy that situation. He tracks down the area that they might be staying at, an encampment for people. And I love that when he was describing them, he was like, yeah, the dad's like in 40s and the kids are maybe middle schoolers. And it's like, and they were black. I think I was like, the way he was dancing around it, it's like you don't want to be like, yeah, and they were black. It feels weird. I think I don't understand it, but just kind of that awkward thing of like, I don't want to be misconstrued as like racist or anything. So as a white guy, it's kind of like they were black. And then once again, he had to add in, I think, you know, so it's like, okay, like no one else is thinking about it, but you as an awkward person just feel like, yeah, that's just kind of weird. Just, it feels weird, like focusing on that. It's like, yeah, but it's a detail. It is an important detail because it lets you know, like, oh, like it eliminates other people's looking for. I'm like, oh, I'm looking specifically for a black father with black children. It's like that makes that a little easier. It's an important detail when you have no other like real details to really give out that would, you know, narrow down the search. But rather than trying to really track down the girls and her father, he ends up giving the 100 to some random person. I thought that was going somewhere else completely different. But that's just me. Especially, there's also the notion of like, oh yeah, this place is only open certain times because they don't have the funding to kind of let people stay there all the time. So I'm like, I felt like that could end up being something they tie into like the show that they're filming type of situation, but we'll see. But yeah, when he came back, he just straight up lied to Whitney, being like, no, it's cool. They invited me to dinner. We hugged. They said no more curse. And yeah, I left. She's like, okay, good. And she went back to recording, and he was smiling because I think he was happy because it's like, right, she's happy and I'm happy. Or maybe he kind of got off on knowing that he lied to her. But then like he looks at the camera and it's like, wait, is that supposed to be fourth wall breaking? But then the camera jerks down and it's like, oh no, it's just the camera guy. Like legit, like, that's what I'm talking about. You don't know how much is like, because even across the hallway in the like when they were talking, I'm like, someone is literally recording this through the peephole. It's like, it's gotta be like he must have set that up already, so that way he has B-roll footage or footage that they're not, because they have say on what footage they're aware of. They can't say anything about footage they're not aware of until after it's already edited and out there and sent out there. And so, dude, this seems like it's going to be, like I said, I've even saw it other places, that this is going to be an uncomfortable watch. Because I think people have already seen the first 3 episodes. I don't know, I think critics, but also just, I know it premiered somewhere. I don't remember if it was last year or maybe it was this year. I was reading somewhere that it's like the first 3 episodes have premiered somewhere. Obviously, it's coming out week to week. Like, that's not like the public isn't getting the first 3 episodes, but it might have been some kind of film festival thing that the first 3 episodes aired at. I think that's what it was. But either way, I'm really interested. This was a nice start to be like, okay, so where the hell is this going to go? This is just going to become more and more uncomfortable, and I can tell, and I'm actually kind of here for it. But it's like, I'm an awkward human being, and I'm just like, oh god, it's like I said, I think cringe comedy is going to be my kryptonite, because I'm like, oh god, I'm too much of an awkward human being to be able to handle that. I think this show, if it gets too crazy, that's why probably like Nathan For You and the the rehearsal are not for me, because me being the awkward human being I am, that would be too much awkwardness for me to handle, and it would probably kill my soul, a little bit or a lot. So I get the feeling like this show might do that. We'll have to wait to see how this all like snowballs and continues, but I'm very excited to see where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.